eBay listeners, you have landed on episode number 68 of eBay the Right Way. I am your host, or fearless leader, or partner in crime, whatever you want to call me. I'm Suzanne A. Wells, and I've been selling on eBay every day since 2003. Today's guest is Lesley, who is a newer seller, but you wouldn't know it by her sales. One of her claims to fame is that she has found 11 items in the 2021 BOLO book. And I think that is a record breaker. So she's going to talk about a few things that she found. But before we get started, I want to say a big thank you to everyone who ordered a calendar during my fire sale. In case you missed it, the 2022 calendars are marked down to $10 in my eBay store. This is a great opportunity for you to experience one of my educational products with a minimal investment. And I designed the calendar so that much of the information is applicable to any time of year. So you can go back through the past months and still learn things. And I wanted to give a shout out to Damaris, one of my longtime followers and a fellow seller in Georgia, who posted this on Facebook. She said, "Just hopping on here to recommend everyone get one of Suzanne's calendars. I just got mine yesterday and it's great. Order one if you don't already have it. I love the eBay prompts like choose 5 items from your death pile and information nuggets contained in it like 6 months till Christmas, list now when sales tend to be slower, and you'll be prepared for fourth quarter when sales pick up. Thank you, Suzanne, for taking the time to put this eBay tool together and for making it available to us. I've been selling on eBay for 15 or so years, and I still love learning how to do things better." So I really appreciate that shout out, Damaris, and I'm glad you love the calendar. So you can check these out in my eBay store, Atlanta Golf Shop. The link is below the podcast. There's several photos of what's inside the calendar. And for $10, you get a huge amount of information that will help you with your eBay business. And now for the chat with Lesley. She calls herself the poster child for reselling.
Hello, listeners. Today we have Lesley Wilson in Texas, and she's going to tell you exactly where in a minute. So how are you on this hot summer morning, Lesley?
I'm surviving. It's very hot already.
I see you drinking something. I'm hoping it is just water or something to hydrate you.
It's my morning caffeine. It's my Diet Dr. Pepper there.
Okay, good. So I was like, I hope it's not so bad there, like you're already drinking at, 10 o'clock in the morning. Which, wish. You do you, if that works, Great. So where exactly in Texas are you?
So I live in a kind of smaller town. It's called Seguin, Texas. It's I think about 40 miles west of San Antonio. Kind of between San Antonio and Austin. I'm pretty easily accessible to both. I'm headquartered out of San Antonio, so I regularly, kind of commute into there. But we're in a very fast growing area of Texas. I think it's one of the fastest kind of growing areas in the nation. So I say somewhat small because I don't foresee it staying that way very long. So,
right. Okay. So you said the magic word, Austin, is sort of a thrifting mecca, I hear.
It is. I actually, I prefer San Antonio, though. I don't know if that's a bad thing to say, but
no, not
Austin,
at all.
Austin is it could be crazy busy, and I do go up there regularly. My second job is based out of just north of Austin, so I'm kind of in that area. My sister just sold her house in Austin, so I was in that area. But it is a great thrifting area, but I think everybody knows that, and it can be very busy. It can be harder to find, I think, stuff sometimes. But I'm a huge fan of the San Antonio thrift scene. I think it's underrated for sure.
Okay, well, and not to minimize San Antonio, I just hear that Austin is like a thrifting mecca. But
it is a thrifting mecca, but you got to be willing to like battle through it. And I don't always have the mindset to want to battle through Austin thrifting.
Well, and I'm a firm believer you can find stuff anywhere. You can find stuff in a town of 5,000 people that has one church thrift store. It's just, you just have to decide you're going to do it.
Some of my best finds are in the smaller ones.
Mm-hmm.
Are the ones in Seguin, which we don't have huge thrift stores. We have like a few. And some of my best finds have been right here in Seguin, not going to the big cities.
Absolutely.
So I agree with that wholeheartedly.
Now, so you do eBay on the side. Do you mind sharing what your regular job is?
Not at all. So I am an investigator for the state. I'm a regional investigator, so I travel quite a bit in my area. So that's what I do full time. And then I also work for a gourmet pasta company on the side. I do some of their, I know, I wear a lot of hats, but I do that kind of on some weekends, and I've been doing that for 5 or 6 years. I just really enjoy that. So,
that's your fun job.
It is. It's my fun interacting with people, talking about pasta. I mean, it's carbs. What more could you ask for? Right.
So your job with the state, is that like criminal investigations or what is that?
So it's I guess technically civil. It's on the civil side. I investigate abuse and neglect in licensed facilities. Okay. So anywhere that children are in licensed facilities, that's what I investigate.
So it's I've done social services branch of the
right.
Okay.
Right. And we do work with we obviously work with law enforcement pretty regularly, and special investigators and that kind of thing. State, federal level sometimes, but it's mostly keeping kids in care, kids that are in licensed facilities, making sure they're safe.
So that takes you around different parts of the town, the city. So do you work your thrifting in when you're doing that job?
Yes, it's been very helpful. And so it's not even just I'm not headquartered. I mean, I'm headquartered in San Antonio, but I cover a region. So I travel about 2 to 3 hours, sometimes more outside of that. And so it takes me to lots of different towns and stuff. And it is definitely helpful. Tend to, what I do is I'll take my lunch. And when I take my lunch, I'll stop by a thrift store. And that's how I've really been able to source from different areas. It's been very helpful. So, and then I go out of town for trainings and conferences sometimes. And I always stop. Like I was in Dallas. I went to the Dallas bins last week.
Oh.
And so I tend to fit my thrifting in wherever I am with work, just on my lunch or after hours. And it works out really well.
That is very smart. And these days of high gas prices, that is double smart to not make extra
Get it where
trips.
You can, right? Yeah.
So
yes,
your mileage
exactly.
is paid. Your mileage is paid by your employer?
Yes, they pay my mileage for traveling for my job, and then I just do it on like my lunch break or when I'm done or something like that.
Well, you are a smart cookie to have all that intertwined and leveraging what you're already doing. I love that. So, okay, the next big question is, how did you get started on eBay and when did that happen?
Oh gosh, so I guess going back, I've always been thrifter, garage seller. That's like in my family since I was a kid. My Grammy was like the master garage seller, like had some sort of magic. She was like garage selling all the time. Anything she had in her house that was like awesome, I can guarantee you she found at a garage sale.
Uh-huh.
So I just kind of grew up around that being like a fun thing. Me and my mom used to garage sell on the weekends. And that was just very much, it's always been fun. The first thing I ever sold on eBay was actually the highest thing I ever sold on eBay. And I just got on eBay to sell that one thing back in 2012. I had just gotten out of college, was early in my career, needed some extra cash for something I had sitting around. And so I sold that, just that one thing. And then kind of bought a couple things, but I really haven't been regularly selling until this past year. Actually, I started kind of hit the ground running.
Oh, really? Because I mean, I look on the Money Making Mondays and the $100 sales when I'm making those videos, and it's like, this person keeps popping up, and you're one of those that like, you keep popping up with these great items. So we need to talk.
No, I just started this last year. But I hit the ground running, and I was kind of a lurker. Like, I wanted to do it for a long time. But I kept, coming up with every reason why I couldn't, shouldn't. And then social media and, TikTok and all these things just kept kind of seeing people do it. And I was like, I could do that. And I just went to a thrift store and I found something just that first time. I was like, I'm going to try this. And then it just kind of took off and it's been fun. It's so fun for me. I enjoy doing it, and it just has taken off, and anybody can do it, honestly. If you know what I mean, you can be new and have great sales. You know what I mean? If you put the work in and invest your time and stuff. So I said, it's been a bit of a whirlwind, but it's been very fun, and I'm really glad I started doing it.
Well, and what you said is a common statement I hear, whether it's on YouTube or email or Facebook, the hesitation to start. What do you think held you back from starting? Is it fear of failure? Is it all this is so new, I don't know if I can figure all these moving parts out? Like, what was holding you back?
Yeah, I think definitely the fear of failure. I think kind of made excuses, and you kind of have to wrap your head around. You think, like, how am I going to make this make sense in my life? I am a very busy person. I already have 2 other jobs. I have 2 small children. One just turned 2 last week. The other is 7. Yeah, it was funny. I was listening to the podcast from a couple weeks. She's like, anybody that has a 2-year-old, I don't know how they do it. And I was like, me. You know what I mean? But I think you make excuses and I think it all is a big fear of failure. I don't have a lot of time. Am I going to invest my time and my money in this not work? There was things that were intimidating. Shipping, I had no idea about shipping. I was like, how do you even, I put stamps on something, but I'd never shipped anything really before, aside from that one sale 10 years ago. So all those things can be very intimidating.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And so I just kind of slowly started like watching resellers on social media platforms or listening to a podcast or kind of watching a video, and you just kind of see, this is something I could do, just learn a little bit more. And like I said, I've been thinking about it for years. I was the type where I would go and I would always see stuff that I was like, man, I bet you could get good money for that. Or I bet you could flip that, but I just never would do it. And finally I was like, you know what? I enjoy doing this. I think I could be good at it. I'm just going to try it. And it's been great. Not to say there hasn't been like little hiccups or things. I'm like, oh, I won't do that again. But it's been great. I really enjoy it. And I'm glad I kind of took the leap, if you will.
Well, and that's the thing is, how many people are out there that are like you were, just walking around in thrift stores, and they know they can flip things, but they just haven't pulled the trigger on that yet. So, for all of us that are on the, we're on the dark side, we're the resellers. It's like, you don't know anything about those people in that thrift store, like why they're in there. Like, they're not necessarily your competitors. We all sell different things. But I think about that is like, how many people know this is a way to make money from home, and they just aren't pulling the trigger yet. And sometimes it's things beyond your control. Like, you've got an infant and a 2-year-old, and there's just no time and there's no bandwidth left in your head to do anything.
Right.
So, or, you're a caregiver for a loved one, and it's just, that's a full-time job. There's a lot of things that are in people's way that keep them from starting, but there's just as many people out there listening to this right now that are thinking, what am I waiting for? And every single seller started with that first item. They didn't know what they were doing. Like, you're not going to figure out everything before you list that first item. You just have to jump in and do it and learn as you go. Because if you wait until the stars are aligned magically, you're never going to do it.
You're never going to do it if you're waiting for that magic moment. Like, you know what I mean? And magic moments, I've just found that, like, if you wait for them, they've already passed you by before you realize what they are. Like, you've got to just kind of do it. And it's going to be a learning curve. And, you know, it's not like it's been like, oh, sunshines and rainbows, and I've had everything together this whole time. Things can get overwhelming. You have to learn what systems work for you, but you have to start somewhere to make it happen. You have to start. You can't just sit on it. And so, yeah, getting started was definitely kind of the biggest hurdle, honestly, was just sitting there for years going, man, that's really cool. I wouldn't want it in my house, but that is so cool. You know, seeing something in a thrift store or something, from being like, you know what, I can do this. And so, yeah, it's been great so far. It's been a lot of fun.
Well, and starting brand new, I mean, you said you've just been doing it about a year. Is that right?
Yeah, just under a year.
So just start with things that are easy to ship. Learn the eBay system, learn about putting your listings up there, and learn about, you know, the eBay search engine and those kind of things. Don't start with your most expensive, hardest to ship item. You know, don't start with your chandelier. Don't start with a, you know, hi-fi system from the 80s with giant speakers. Don't do that. Start with little things that are easy to work with, easy to ship, and then you build on that. I mean, when you don't know how to swim, you don't just go join the swim team and hope you can figure it out. You know, you take lessons and you learn, and so it's a process. And but I mean, you've done so well in just a year.
Well, I think it can be kind of intimidating for people too, because, and social media can be a wonderful thing. Like I said, it kind of is one of those things that helped me kind of realize that if these people do it, I can do it. But if you get too saturated in it, you think you need all this stuff to start. Oh, I would need a thermal printer. Oh, I need this. Oh, I need that. I need this whole space. I need that, you know, and you really don't. And you can build to acquire those things once you've got a system down, but you don't have to have all this stuff just to start. You know, you don't have to run out and invest in a thermal printer and all these, you know, buy all these packs. You don't have to do all that. I think
No.
kind of the thought of getting started is very intimidating for people. But I guess what I kind of loved about this is getting started. You really don't have to do too much. You know, I mean, learning is your biggest thing. But you can really start with what you have, supplies wise. Even like, you know, I remember when I first started, I just printed labels on a regular computer paper and like folded them in half and like taped them to the box. You know what I mean? Like my first couple were that way. So you really don't have to have big things.
I did that for years. I didn't buy labels, and then I graduated to a page label, and I only got a thermal printer last year, maybe. I mean, I'm one of these people that
I finally got one just a couple weeks ago.
I use things until they
like such a
become obsolete or don't work anymore. So sometimes I'm like,
I hate waste.
Yeah.
I hate waste. And that's another reason why I love this job so much, is I go to the bins or thrift stores and I hate the thought of like things going to waste. So if I can like repurpose that for someone else, like I love that. But yeah, I'm the type that I use something until it's on like its last leg taped together. Like it's been fixed 50 times. Like I'm with you on that.
Well, and I'm an early adopter of some things, but not of others. So it's like, I just hate to see something go if it's still useful. So it's like, I kept working with that $25 printer. It's like, but you know, the ink I'm buying is so expensive. That's what's called the Gillette razor model, where the razor's cheap, but they get you on the razor blades, the refills. And so I'm like, this is just dumb. I could have bought a thermal printer like 3 times.
Yeah.
What the ink cost me for this dumb $25 HP printer. So,
and that's kind of where we had a storm here, and the one I had, like, it just, I don't know if it like surged or something, and it did something to my printer. But I was like, I'm not buying it. Like, I'll just get a thermal printer. Like, this is ridiculous. And so I found a really good deal on one, and it's worked great so far. So, but yeah, that was my push, is to like, this one has eaten the dust, you finally need to get one. So I got one. It's honestly been the best investment, but
Yeah.
yeah, I tend to wait on those things.
Yeah. So for the listeners, just use what you have to start, because you don't know if you're going to keep doing it or not. So I hate to see people invest all this money in equipment and stuff that they don't need. And this is supposed to be no startup costs. Like, it's not like one of those MLMs like Pampered Chef or the aromatherapy stuff where you have to buy all these things and have parties. And, even though they're online parties now, you don't have to do any of that. You just, oh, let me see if I can sell this. And I put a bunch of lots of DVDs together yesterday because back in 2020, when everyone was at home and streaming services figured out people will pay for movies, even if they're 20, 30 years old. And I was like, I'm not doing that. So I amassed this big DVD collection of all my favorites because, like, I'm not paying $4 to watch Ferris Bueller. That's just for background noise. That's just for TV company. So now everything is everywhere. And I was like, yeah, I really haven't watched these DVDs. I'm going to pass those on, sell those. Maybe somebody else would want them. But as a seller, this is your first year. Next year will be my 20th year. Every day I'm evaluating. Oh, I haven't used that in 6 months. Maybe I should sell it. It never stops.
What's working, what's not working. Yeah.
Right.
Well, mine is, I
right.
have kids too.
Right.
Like I said, and I have kids. And so the stuff you amass when you have kids, like, just, I don't know why, it's just like multiplies tenfold of, like, not even just little tiny clothes, but like just stuff. And so I'm constantly telling my wife, I'm like, we've got to get rid of some stuff. Like, so I don't know why. It's more people, I guess you just amass more stuff, but it's like a constant stuff battle. And so, yeah, I feel you on that.
Well, but when you have little kids, especially, people give you stuff. They get all this stuff for their birthday from the grandparents. Neighbors are like, oh, my kids don't play with this anymore. You want it, or if you've got nieces and nephews or whatever, and they outgrow things, not just clothes, but toys and everything, it filters down to you. So it's not like you bought all this stuff for them. It does kind of appear.
Yeah, it does. It's like a constant. But yeah, so that's been helpful too. I've lauded, like, when my daughter outgrew her infant shoes. Infants they wear shoes for decor. They don't do anything.
Yeah, they're decoration.
So
they're not functional.
So I sold like a lot of her her infant shoes, and I'll do stuff like that occasionally. Some of it I tend to donate to my favorite thrift stores here, where I go and get stuff because a lot of them, my favorite one actually benefits the women's shelter and the crisis center here. So all the little kids, clothes and stuff mostly go there. I'll do occasional things, but it's kind of like the never ending. I'll give you all my kids stuff and I'll come buy all your stuff for me to sell.
Right.
So it works
exactly.
out.
Yeah. So let's talk about some things that you sold that either were interesting or high dollar or really surprised you.
Okay. I've had a couple. I really don't have like a niche. I mean, I know a lot of people say, like, find your niche, find what you know, but I'm not one for. I don't have necessarily like one hobby where I'm like, oh, I know all about this, I'm going to sell this. I just look for stuff that catches my eye, or stuff that is, sometimes it's really weird. Probably my favorite sale, and it's not even my biggest one, but one of my favorite ones was, I was in a Goodwill in San Antonio and I found a taxidermied piranha. It was about 10 and a half inches long.
Yes.
Yeah. For like $4.49 or something like that. I think that someone was like, who is going to want this taxidermy fish? But he was a red-bellied Venezuelan piranha. He was really pretty and in like fantastic shape. And I sold him, I think, within like maybe 6 weeks for like $150. And I remember bringing it home and my wife looked at me like, what are you doing with a taxidermy fish? Like, are you kidding? But yeah, I laughed really hard when that sold for full asking. I thought it was hysterical, but a taxidermied piranha.
I can imagine I can imagine your wife going, so are we hanging that on the wall? Are we selling that? What is this, a
I
gag
put it up
gift?
in the
Like,
closet
what
till
is
it's
going
sold.
on
I
with
know.
this?
I'm sure she looks at my stuff sometimes and it's just like, what are you thinking? But it sold, and the guy was super thrilled with it. He like left positive feedback that it was beautiful and he loved it. He was thrilled with it. And so I was tickled. I don't know. It's probably my favorite sell so far just because it was a fish. It was a fish on a shelf in a Goodwill. Like and it was like in that aisle where like all the crap is, you know what I'm talking? Like that
Oh
one
yeah.
aisle in Goodwill where they kind of throw everything that they have no idea what to do with. It was in that aisle. And so that's been probably my favorite sale.
Yeah, I love that aisle if it's well stocked, because it's just, you don't know what's underneath all that. Like the top layer, you look under it and I found so many good things back in there. And those little junky baskets of stuff on the end of the aisle. That's where I found the autograph book I sold for $1,000. It was just under some gloves. Like somebody picked it up, looked at it, and just threw it away, threw it over there. And then I come along and it's underneath some gloves and hats. And I'm like, what is this? So it's just, you have to have that, the thrill of the hunt in your DNA, I think, because some sellers come to this, and people I've, coached and mentored or whatever, and they're like, you mean I have to look through everything? I was like, well, yeah, how else you gonna find stuff? There's stuff that's gonna be laying on the top. Well, sometimes it's laying on the top, but yeah, that's the part I like is looking, because you just never know what the next thing is you're gonna see.
Right. And after a while you'll like learn, how to move through it quickly. But I'm just waiting to like discover some cache of Lisa Frank someday. Someday in the paper section, I'm gonna find that Lisa Frank.
I always look for that. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, that's where I found that piranha. And I think he's just been my favorite just because it was ridiculous. It was a taxidermied fish. And he was in like perfect condition. He had no chips off him, his fins were beautiful. So yeah, that's probably been my favorite find. I think what kind of got me really going, where I was like, I can definitely do this. It wasn't even, I had sold a couple things. The first thing I found was an electric typewriter, which I know the time wasters is usually like a no-go.
Well, okay. So what she's referring to is in the premium library. When I first started that in 2018, I made some videos called Time Wasters, because it was things that everybody had in their house if they were Gen X or baby boomer, like a punch bowl set or those Reader's Digest condensed books. Like everybody has National Geographic magazines, just stuff that everybody had that really doesn't sell that great. But anyway, electric typewriters was in there purely for the fact that it's just a pain to ship them, and they're not worth that.
Yeah, that was, I won't do it again because that was a hard lesson learned. But I was kind of dipping my toes in a Goodwill on my lunch break in San Antonio, and I found I think it was a Brother one, but it had the floppy disk. And that's kind of, I think, the key with electric typewriters is if they have working floppy disks, people will buy them. I don't know who still owns floppy disks, but it's a thing. And so I just kind of like half tested it there in the store, and I was like, well, it came on. And I took it home and it was in like stellar condition. I think I had paid like $6.99 for it. I think I sold it for $175. So that was kind of my first thing that I was like, I can do this. And then the next week, that kind of got the ball rolling.
You're
and
like,
the next week,
Suzanne was wrong. This does sell.
It's funny because I just was able to it wasn't that long ago that I was listening to your Time Wasters and other ones, because since then I had looked up ones. When I see them in thrift stores, I'll look them up, and I've never bought another one because I've never really seen them on a really great sell-through rate or anything. But for some reason, that one with its working floppy disk, it was like impeccable order. Some dude ordered it for like, it was like 175 or something like that. But that worked out well. But I thought it was funny because you're absolutely right. Every other one electric typewriter that I've looked at hasn't really been nothing worth picking up. But for whatever reason, that first one was. And then like a week later, so that kind of got the snowball. Okay, I could maybe do this. And then a week later, I was watching a football game in my house. My family's big Denver Bronco fans, so we're always watching football in football season. And a guy in my neighborhood had posted a Budweiser pool table lamp, and he was
Okay.
asking $100 for it. And it wasn't just like a normal lamp. It had like the top of it had the Clydesdales and like the carriage in like it looked very vintage, it was very cool looking. And he was just getting rid of it for $100. And so I just did a quick eBay like search and saw the numbers, and I was like, picking this up now. And so I picked it up at halftime. And I listed it kind of high for what was listed, but it sold for full asking for $440 in like, I think maybe 2 to 3 weeks. Not very long. No, it was
Oh,
5 days.
wow.
It was 5 days. So I was okay, I can definitely do this. And yeah, shipping on both those things, like horrible things to pick to go first. It's like a miracle that Budweiser lamp arrived in, like, because I had never shipped anything like that before, and I was just like filling it and wrapping it and hoping to God it made it there. 'Cause it's a big box. But yeah, so that kind of those were really exciting sales for me because they were some of my first ones, and I was like, I can do this based on those sales. And so I haven't really, those were honestly like the two hardest things I've ever really shipped. Otherwise, I've kind of kept it smaller, but those were exciting sales for me as well. I think those were the ones where I was like, I could do this and I could make some money doing this. So those were fun for me.
Well, and that the fact that you started off with two items that were so intricate to ship, yeah, then you can do anything. Like everything after that is easy.
Yeah, I was like bubble wrapping the chains because this light had like the original chain, had the original pulls, but they were like heavy chains, and then it's glass. And so I'm like bubble wrapping and foam wrapping and filling this box. I mean, it was like that poor person had to unwrap that lamp, was probably like a little extra, but it got there. And I had no complaints. And so that's what I cared about in that one. So yeah, maybe advice if you're really starting off, you don't have to go with the big things right off the bat shipping wise.
Yeah.
But yeah, once I wrapped it, I was like, okay, I can ship this. I can do anything. You know what I mean? And so nothing's been too intimidating since, but I've learned my lesson on those things for sure.
Yeah. I had a coffee mug returned first time ever, because I was quarter of an inch off on the measurement, and apparently she collected these, and so it didn't go with all the other ones she had. And so totally my fault on not being exact enough, but I thought I was never going to get that thing unwrapped. I mean, she did like that stretch wrap stuff, and then a layer of bubble wrap, and then a layer of the brown craft paper, and then put it in a box, and then stretch wrap the box and bubble wrap the box, and then put it in another. It was like literally 11 layers of stuff I had to go through. And I'm like,
you did not want that to break like that.
She's a coffee mug collector, so she's probably doing this to other people too. Like,
I didn't know that measurements were. I didn't know that measurements were so serious on coffee mugs. I love selling a good coffee mug too. I've sold a lot of Disney. I've learned what's really good with Disney, and I've sold a couple Disney mugs that I've gotten some good, like, stupid money for sometimes, and what it feels like for a coffee mug. And then I've done a couple Starbucks ones as well. But I love mugs. But yeah, I guess she really didn't want. I didn't know that there was people were so precise on measurement.
Well, it was a Ray Dunn, and it was one of the early ones. So they're not all the same size, but she wanted this collection where she could display that they were all the same size. And I don't know, I just feel like maybe she needs a little more to do. If she's
like it.
Like hung up on, yeah. So that's her thing in life is collecting these Ray Dunn mugs. And so I looked at her feedback, and that's all she buys on eBay is Ray Dunn mugs. So that was a first time for me, but I did take a lower offer than I wanted on that item anyway, because it was during the eBay drought when nothing was selling. So I'll just sell it for more next time, and sell on these Ray Dunn mugs, do the measuring tape next to it so it shows the exact, like, is it 2 7/8 inches tall? Is it 3 15/16 inches tall. Like, I didn't know it was so exact,
Yeah.
but live and learn.
Yeah,
It's
and
fun.
I've learned, and that's the thing is I've learned that sometimes people can be very particular, and especially collectors. I've had something annoying like that, but you'll sell it for more than you sold it the first time. Something similar happened to me. I had it's from the 90s, and it was a cookie jar, and it was an alligator, like a Cajun alligator cookie jar.
Oh,
And it was new in box. I picked it up from a Goodwill from like the toy bin for like $7, but it was from like 1995. And there was a collection of animals. This one was the crocodile, and when you put a cookie in, it says something Cajun-y. I forget what it says. Something about it being a good cookie or something. And it was nostalgic. It was really cool. But it was new in box. It still had the what do you call it? Like the zip tie that kind of went from the bottom and over it. And I took pictures of it, had taken pictures of like every angle, or so I thought, put that it was new in box, put that the box wasn't perfect, because it wasn't, it was a little dinged up, and 25 years of being passed around and thrown in the Goodwill toy bin will do that. And I sent it out, and yeah, the seller, what happened was, so at the bottom where the zip ties were, one of the zip ties had like popped up, not out, just had popped up, and whoever before me had put in a little piece of tape just right over to keep it held down instead of like popped up to not catch on things, I assume. And I put that the box wasn't perfect, but he messaged me back that this wasn't brand new, and how, there was this piece of tape on the bottom and like all this stuff. And I was like, said the box wasn't perfect, but if that's not brand new for you, feel free to send it back. I had taken an offer on anyways of like $55. And so he sent it back. I just relisted it, and I think I sold it for like 65, like a month later. So it's just sometimes you can't. And part of you wants to be really mad about that and be like, principles, that's stupid. Come on, that's ridiculous. But you can't, you got time and energy, like you only have so much of, and I'm not going to waste it on being mad about something like that. So no problem, returned it, relisted it, got more for it anyways. You know what I mean? Moving on.
yeah. Yeah. Or I love it when you sell clothing, which I don't know if you do, but they return it because like, oh, this must run small. I always wear this size. And it's like, or maybe the size of you has changed. It's like,
Are you sure you always wear that size?
Yeah, are you sure? Like, so I hesitate in selling things that don't stretch, because that's usually a better fit and doesn't get returned. Like athletic wear, it's all stretchy. I do like selling the linen tops, but those are usually kind of oversized, and like, so the air can flow through, because the whole point of that is it keeps you cool. So things that have to fit perfectly, I don't sell them if they don't have some give, because people come in all shapes and sizes. And to be honest, just because it's a certain brand, every, large in that brand is not going to fit the same. I even find this out when I buy clothes for myself and I like something and I buy like 4 different colors. They're not all the same, even though they're the same size and the same brand and everything. So it's just interesting, some of the comments you get when clothing is returned, which is fine. I like to try things on before I commit, but it's just some of the things they say kind of crack me up.
Yeah, and I'm picky on clothes. I have some that I still need to list. I have some listed, mostly like vintage, LL Bean or Orbis. I have an Orbis fishing vest listed. I have a really awesome like 80s women's ski jacket that I have listed. I'm kind of picky on clothes, mostly because like the measurements and stuff, I just haven't like gotten that down pat. I'd like to do better at that, but just kind of the time, I haven't got that down to where I'm doing that real regularly. But yes, I've already had that experience with the limited clothes I've sold. I sold it was like a vintage 80s ski jacket, and it was like a medium, but it was obvious that size, especially vintage clothing, runs smaller. Put that in listing, put the measurements on it, put this is an adult medium, but these are the measurements. It runs small, just so everybody knows. And sure enough, they got it, and they were like, this is a child's jacket. And I'm like, no, it's not. It's not your child. it runs small as it
Mhm.
says. They're like, oh, there's no way. And I'm like, well, just return it. And they're like, well, it's not as described because this is a child's jacket. I was like, you know what? It was like $20. I was like, just keep it. If you don't use it, donate it to a shelter or someone who's going to use it. It's a really nice winter coat.
Mhm.
It's not worth, the hassle. But yeah, and they did. And then they're like, oh, that's so nice. We'll leave you a positive feedback. And I'm like, it's clothes are hard already, so it's not my favorite thing. I do
Yeah.
pick up like jersey, vintage concert t-shirts, that kind of thing. I need to get some listed, but for that reason, I think that would probably drive me crazy after a while.
Well, the one I love is when someone says, "Do you think this will fit my wife, or do you think this will fit my husband?" And it's like I have a scripted answer for that. I'm like, "Thank you for your interest in this item. The measurements are shown. It is best to find an item similar to this that fits the person well and compare the measurements. We stand by our return policy. If it doesn't fit, people come in all shapes and sizes. So I've never seen your husband, wife. I have no idea. And I really want to say, like, I don't even know if stuff's going to fit me that I order for myself. So bless your heart for shopping for that person. But all you can do is compare the measurements. And if it doesn't work, send it back.
I have no idea. Yeah, I barely shop for myself, well, much less someone I don't know. That's
I know.
that's funny.
Yeah. Well, but you have found some bolos.
I have. Found a lot of bolos. I got that book, and it's so funny because I got that and I started looking through it, and I'm like, not that I've seen it, but a lot of it I recognize just because of, especially like I was saying earlier in the toy section and stuff. I grew up as like a late 80s, 90s child, and so that
Mhm.
stuff's very nostalgic. So I loved it for that purpose. But I that book has been great because I think I was counting last night. I think there's 11 things in the book that I've found or sold, two of which just in the last 2 weeks, I think.
Okay, so you're talking about the 2021 Bolo book that has
Uh-huh.
125 items. Do you want to share some of the things that you found?
Sure. So the ones that I got recently, um, page 46, the diabetic foot massager.
Oh, I've been
I was
looking
in
for one of those. Ah,
girl, I was in a conference in Galveston for work for my normal job at the beginning of May. And of course, I had to hit a thrift store while I was there. Um, and it was like, it wasn't even like a Goodwill, it was like a smaller, like hole in the wall thrift store favorite. I got some excellent scores there, but I found one for $4. And I mean, in perfect working, beautiful condition. And I still need to list it. It's sitting here. I sitting right next to my desk and need to list it. But like, because they don't know. And if I would have looked at that machine, I wouldn't be like, that's gonna sell for big money. You know what I mean? But yeah, $4 for that. And then last week when I was in Dallas I was at a training up in Dallas, I hit my first bins ever. That was an experience. And I found the bins and it slash a store. I found the wax rollers, the Remington
oh,
wax
the
rollers
Remington Tight Girls. Okay, so the blue ones.
for the yeah, the blue ones, full set in their little container for I think it was like $5.99 at the store. So
I think
yeah, I don't.
I'm the only eBay seller that's never found those.
And it's funny. I never would. I mean, I don't think I've ever put curlers in my hair. Maybe when I was like real little and mom.
Okay, we had a little internet hiccup. So we were talking about the Remington Tight Curls and that find.
Yes. Yeah. So I found that one at that Goodwill store for $5.99. And I just think it's funny. I never would have looked for something like that because it's not something I use.
Right.
Obviously I've got short hair. I don't know about beauty products really, but that's probably been the most useful. So that was fun though. I was super excited. I've heard people talk about it. I know they have a sell-through rate that's great. And it's funny because it didn't have like pins with it, like the little pins, but I was just moving some stuff over to storage yesterday and I found like a whole pack that like will fit it perfectly. And I have no idea where they came from. No idea. But
Oh, that's fantastic. Okay.
just a little bag of them will go right with it. So I'm going to get those listed here pretty soon too, but was super excited.
But now that you know I mean, they're blue and they look different than most other hair curlers. So now that you know, you're like, oh, that's so obvious.
Yeah.
Easy,
Oh, yeah.
easy to spot. Yeah.
And it's really easy to see what, like, because I don't know, hair curlers are like, I don't know, I see them all the time. They're everywhere. And I don't have time to go through every single one and say what is a good one, because sometimes there's like literally 10 things of hair curlers sitting on the shelf and they most look pretty generic, or they're really old, but just because they're really old doesn't make them good. So yeah, those ones are easy to spot. And then I have another set that I'm going to list. Their hair color, they're vintage, and they come in like a case. I don't know exactly what brand they are off the top of my head, but I found them at a thrift store in Kerrville for $5, and they regularly sell for like $90 to $100. So
oh, wow.
this week is probably going to be hair curler week, and I'll get them cleaned and posted and get those on there. But yeah,
Well,
both, that's what I love about it. I never would have thought to look.
If you're seeing so many hair roller sets, because I mean, Texas is a big state and there's lots of beauty queens in that state.
We have lots of big hair here. It's true. even still, we have lots of big hair. So yes, it is. I'm sure that's part of it. And hair curlers, I think that people, again, cleaning out, you've mentioned before, cleaning out parent stuff, cleaning out, vintage stuff. And they're like, I don't know what to do with this. And they're not going to use it. And they just donate them. But that, I think, I don't, and I see a lot of the not newer ones, but like not that old ones. And I just don't think they make stuff as good as they used to. And so people will also not be happy with something and then just donate that. And then you have, 10 run of the mill regular hair curlers. But yeah, Texas.
Well, what else have you found? Because I think you're going to be the poster child for the BOLO book.
Well, you put my picture. That's right. No, so probably my favorite, it was the brand. It was Mackenzie Childs. I think it's page 72 and 73. And I love that one because I was sharing it with my mom. My mom has always been a big garage seller thrifter. My family's like really thrifty. Last Christmas, we did a thrifty Christmas where we could only give each other things from thrift stores.
Mm-hmm.
So I killed that one because I'm in thrift stores all the time. But I was sharing the BOLO book with her and we were looking through it and we get to that page and she says, I have one of those, a Mackenzie Child's canister. She's like, I have one of those. It's holding my tea bags in the pantry. And I was like, what? She's like, yeah, my coworker, she's retired now, but she had worked at Pavestone, and a coworker had come in and was like, hey, do you want this canister? I'm just going to throw it away. And she was like, yeah, that's cute. And so we looked it up and it's like $100 canister that she just has her tea bags in. But it made me note that pattern. And so not long after that, I was at my favorite thrift store here in Seguin, and I saw like a child's lamp, and it had that checkered, that very distinct pattern. And I said, it's Mackenzie Childs. And it wasn't marked, but when I Google lensed it, a lot popped up that was Mackenzie Childs. It didn't even have like the shade. It was literally just the base. It was working, but it was the base and the light parts. And it had crazing like throughout almost the whole thing. But I put Mackenzie Childs style just in case too, because it wasn't marked, and it sold in like, I want to say a week for 115. I think I paid $2.99 for it. So I love that one. My mom still has that canister. One of these days I'll like probably snag it or something. I don't know, but
the
that was super fun.
The official name of that Mackenzie Childs is Courtly Check. And most of the items have that black and white checkerboard somewhere on it, in addition to a whole bunch of other stuff like, maybe flowers or maybe just geometric, different colors or a harlequin pattern, or, it's usually on there somewhere. That's their signature mark, is the Courtly Check.
Yeah. And it had really pretty, it had really pretty coloring. It's not something, it was obviously a child's lamp. It was pretty small, not something I would have been like chosen to put in my house for sure. In fact, I'm sure that's what they were probably like, this is the ugliest lamp. We're going to put like $2.99 on it because, I don't even, and it had crazing on it, which I noted and took pictures of. But because I had remembered that check that you're describing,
right.
I just caught my eye and I looked at it, and sure enough, it was It was Mackenzie Childs, and that sold fairly quickly, and the lady
Oh,
was super
great.
happy with it.
Well, and I
Yeah,
try to put
that one was
things that
fun.
are easy to spot because they have a distinct look. Like there's a popcorn bowl that's just plain white, and it's either Crate and Barrel or Pottery Barn or something like that. I mean, I know about it, but it doesn't jump out at you like like the Mackenzie Child patterns going everywhere. So
Right.
because you do get, I guess it's called thrifter's overload, where I can't look at this stuff anymore. Okay, I'm a little deflated here. I can't look at it anymore, and it's hard enough when you're full on, just got there, ready to treasure hunt. It can be overwhelming.
Yeah, there's certain things I don't sell, or I look at and I said, I'm not doing that today. Like I'm not like just not today.
Yeah, I
Especially if
get
I'm
it.
on a crunch for time and I really only have a lunch hour, I tend to gravitate towards my areas. But yeah, I feel that. And some things you'll learn to like you just learn to recognize the look of it. You know what I mean? Like that's another one from the Bolo is Jellycat plush. I
Mhm.
love Jellycat plush. And it's funny because I had bought my nephew for his birthday. He loves tigers, and there's a small gift shop here in Seguin that sells Jellycat. And I had bought him this. I didn't even know what Jellycat was at the time. I had bought him this tiger, and it's his favorite like tiger, very soft. And so when I started hearing Jellycat and realizing that's what it was, that was fun. And I found a lot of Jellycat and sold a lot of Jellycat, but you get to know what it looks like. And so when you're
Mhm.
going through plush, you're like, oh, that's Jellycat. You know what I mean? You can grab it pretty
Yeah, well,
fast.
some
But
of them have like a fuzzy feel, and then some of them are it's almost like corduroy, but it's really wide, and they have that look to them. So and then
yeah,
there's some. Go
they
ahead.
have the real soft ones, like the really soft, like insanely soft. And then they do have like that wiry. I actually have one right now. I'm trying to do some research on him. He's a puppy and he's retired and he's older, but I have not seen he's like brown with white stomach and white nose, and I have not seen his color combo anywhere, like
Hmm.
sold anything. And so I'm trying to do more research on him. And then I have that corduroy. I have a corduroy like it's like a horse with a corduroy belly and kind of like a plaid on the bottom of his feet. And he was new
Mhm.
with tags, and he's listed right now. So
Yeah.
yeah, Jellycat has several different patterns, and you always have like the one you have in the bow, the pistachio bunny, but like that style of that bunny. I have had several of the bunnies, the fuddle wuddle kind of style.
Yeah.
Um, but you learn to kind of spot it. I love Jellycat. I have a heart for plush, so I think I was a child that like really loved my stuffed animals, and so like
Uh-huh.
I love vintage plush, Jellycat plush, Joe plush. Like I like taking plush and cleaning it up and selling it. It's one of my favorite things.
Restoring it to its almost original
Yes.
condition. Yeah. Well, and the Jellycat label is so distinct. You don't have to even have your reading glasses on. You can just see what it is because it's the little cat face and it's got some blue on there. Some of those tags get a little hard to read, especially if they're truly vintage and they've, the letters have
Yeah.
worn off, like you don't even know what it is.
Mhm. That's what I do appreciate. The one thing I appreciate is Jellycat because it's so thick. And so I actually found one bunny that they had like snipped off the tag, but it still had like the remnant. And I knew it was Jellycat because of what
Uh-huh.
it looked like, but also it had just enough to be like this thickness of this tag. This is definitely Jellycat.
Right.
But I appreciate that's why I do like the Disney, like the authentic plush, which I've done really well with. It has like the authentic stamp on it. And then that's why I like Scentsy Buddies too, because they have the little patch on them. So I always appreciate a well
What,
marked plush, but those old ones could get faded.
what was that name you just said?
Scentsy, the
Oh,
buddies,
the
the Scentsy
Scentsy.
buddies.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, I didn't know those were good sellers.
Yeah, I've sold several of them. I've sold like a panda one. I've sold like a little like it's called a wibbit. He's like a little frog with a scent
Hmm.
pack in him. And then I just picked up I found a Dumbo one at the bins, and then I think a rhino one. I have a couple that I need to clean up that I just picked up. But yeah, Scentsy Buddies, and not always for like a ton. Sometimes it's $20, 15 to 20, but when you pick them up for super cheap and they sell pretty regular, they're definitely worth it. So Scentsy Buddy is always, especially a lot of times there's scent packs still in them. Like people will forget to take the scent packs out, and
Oh,
so they'll
okay.
pick them up secondhand. They still have the scent packs, which people really like. So
Well, that is a great tip. I didn't know that
yeah,
one.
the patch on, like, it's usually on kind of the hind end, the little patch. It's kind of like
Uh-huh.
sewn into it, if you will. So they're easy to recognize.
Yes, I have seen them. I just didn't realize that was a thing. So good.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we are getting to the end. So let me ask you real quick, how many items do you have in your store?
I think right now I'm down to kind of, I think about 160 right now. I haven't been, like I said, the last couple of days I really have, last week or two I've really focused on moving stuff. They just built a climate controlled storage unit like right next to my neighborhood, and so I kind of snagged one of those. Like literally it's like 2 minutes away from me, and I just needed kind of some designated space and to not drive my family crazy anymore.
Right.
It's been kind of focused there, but I usually hover right around 200. It's kind of what my time usually affords me, but I have a mountain of stuff I need to list, so I'm going to focus on listing the next week or two. But I think right now about 160, 170 maybe.
That's a lot for this being your third job.
Yeah, it gets there sometimes. But that's the thing, is you get you get into the groove of things. You find a system that works for you, and so I tend to do things in batches. I'll sit there and I use Photo app is like the best investment of my life. And I'll just take a bunch of pictures, and then when I'm sitting there watching a movie with my kids or something later, I'll just batch all the pictures. You get like a system that works for you, and so instead of trying to take like one little individual thing, take a picture, do a listing, I do it in batches.
Mm-hmm.
And that tends to help.
Yeah, I don't think we need these big photo setups anymore. I mean, you do need good lighting, but having all these photo boxes and white screens, and we don't need that anymore with all these background removal apps.
Honestly, I have this big window here for natural lighting, and then I usually I usually just set up my record player. Like I have a box of holds my vinyl records. I'll just like stick it on that couch to make like an even surface, and then I have a ring light, and that's it. And I'll just sit there and do pictures, and then batch them all later, and then I like go through and do drafts, on eBay, and just kind of do it in batches. And you really don't need. Yeah, technology has come so long, especially like I said, that first sale I ever made was my biggest sale. And I remember how hard that was compared to now. You know what I mean? That my uncle was a traveling musician. I played a lot of guitar when I was in high school and had gotten an electric guitar. And he was like, "Hey, I have this amp. If you want it, you can have it." When I was in high school, and it was a 1957 Fender Champ amp, which is like it's a glass tube amp. It was in perfect shape. Used it for years. In high school, loved it. And then after college, I was kind of sitting around, and I needed to get a house, a place to live. And that was the first thing I ever sold on eBay. I sold it auction style, and I think it sold for $1,480.
Wow.
My first ever. Yeah. And so I don't know how I didn't get the bug then, but back then it was, you had to literally, everything was computer, and you had to like take pictures and even upload it. And it wasn't that long ago, but I mean, it's changed a lot. The accessibility has changed a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, you can make things as easy or as hard as you kind of want to, but yeah, it doesn't take a lot.
Yeah. And I don't think photos have to be as perfect anymore, because I always, as a perfectionist, try to make them look as good as I can, but with Poshmark is all flat lay, and all these other sites that for reselling, and even you look at solds on eBay, and it's like that person just kind of threw that item on their countertop and took a picture and it sold. So I used to spend a lot more time making my photos perfect from a competitive standpoint, but sometimes good enough is good enough. It's, your photo's not going in the Smithsonian, it's not the Mona Lisa, and hopefully your item's going to sell. It's not even going to be out there that long. So,
and Photo app makes it really easy. It does most of the work for you. And there's other apps, not just Photo app, that will.
Are you talking about Photo Room?
Yeah, that's what I meant. Photo room.
Photo room.
Yes, that
Okay.
one.
Yeah.
Where you can batch them all. You know what I mean? And you can do it for free and do picture by picture. They have a free one. I invested and did where I can do batch because I tend to do a lot of pictures at once. But yeah, it's so easy to go in and remove backgrounds and make them look really good. And if they're not perfect, I mean, as long as you get good pictures that you're not, it's the time you put in. Okay, are you gonna get returns or not? You want to make sure you take good
Yeah,
pictures that way.
and
But it's
time is
really,
money with these apps. Sometimes it's worth it to pay. You really, this business is all about time, how much you can do. You've got to get out there and find the stuff. You've got to get it listed. You've got to ship what sells, and you really have to take a look at your business frequently and see, am I being as time efficient as possible with the technology that's available?
well,
Yeah.
and it's, the biggest thing with photos is what's funny is what I'm still trying to figure out, what I'm still learning is like how to take pictures of like blankets or, clothes. Like I've but like I have this awesome, it's a one of a kind. It was someone had taken the vintage Mickey Mouse, Disney. There was an artist who did like handkerchiefs of vintage Mickey and stuff. And he had sewn them all together. I think there's 12 of them total in
Oh,
quilt, and I
wow.
found it for like $5.99. It is a one of a kind. Usually the handkerchiefs sell for like 15 to 20 a piece, and there's 12 of them sewn into a quilt. And so I've had that, and I know I don't know. I'm still trying to. I don't even know how to price it at this point. I'm trying to research it and figure it out. But like, it's a big quilt. Like I've never taken a picture of a big, so I'm still trying to figure stuff like that out. But that's the hard part of photos for me. It's
Well, I
not the
find it
regular.
best to put it on a bed and
Yeah.
just take a picture and then remove the background, because you want them to see it spread out, and then of
Yes.
course note any flaws or defects. But it's not perfect. Or if you have a railing, you can hang it over, so you can do half and then do a picture of the other side. Because I don't know what buyers, if they would buy an item that's just folded up, like they can't see the whole thing.
Right.
So,
I mean, a baby blanket's one thing because you get the pattern, you know what I mean? Or like kind of like but yeah, a big one. And especially because there's such distinct panels with the different handkerchiefs. It's going to be one of those ones, but I'm excited for that. I just have to figure out.
yeah. Or
how to do it. I think the bed, that's a great tip.
You could somehow maybe use command hooks or something and hang it on a wall.
Yeah.
Create a way to do that over and over again. I don't know.
And my mom has a big clothesline, stiff clothesline. Maybe I'll
I was
go
just going to
there
say clothesline. Yep. Okay. Well, the last question is advice. Since you've only really been doing this heavily for a year, what kind of advice would you give to people who are either just on the fence, they're scared to jump, or just getting into this?
Yeah. I think first and foremost is just to do it. You're never going to get anywhere if you're sitting on the fence. You know what I mean? Like and you can do it. If I can do it with the limited time I have, you can do it, and you can make it work. You can make something that works for you. That's what I love about this business is it's not this many hours and you got to do this and this and this, and you have to sell this or that. I mean, you can make it work for you. I don't love garage sales and estate sales, have not hit a single one since I've started this. It's all been thrift stores. You can make it work for you. If you're afraid of the support or how you're going to do it, you can find it. If you don't have, my family has been super supportive. They hype me up all the time for it. But there's communities like our Facebook group here, you know what I mean? And podcasts, like you can find support and learning through that. You just have to start. You have to start somewhere. I sat on the fence for like 5 years, and I wish I would have jumped a lot sooner because it's been so fun and it's been so rewarding. So you have to first off just do it. And whether that's just starting on something completely ridiculous that you don't know how to ship, and you figure it out, great. If it's things you have in your house, great. You just have to do it. And then the second part of that, I would say, would be willing to invest in yourself. Like this does require an investment, and that doesn't mean money. I mean, you can do it with the stuff that you have in your house and free packing supplies from friends and whatever printer you have. But you have to be willing to invest. Mostly for a lot, it's investing your time, whether that's, you know, switching out your crime junkie podcast for this one when you're on the road, or whether that's, instead of watching TikTok, watch a YouTube video, invest your time, maybe sacrifice a lunch break and hit a thrift store just to get a feel of it. It requires an investment, not, like I said, not always money, but usually time and some energy. But if you're willing to invest that in yourself, you can, you'll reap the benefits from it. If nothing else, you'll learn something, and learning is invaluable. So that's what I
Yeah.
would say. Do it, get
Okay.
off the fence, and be willing to invest in yourself. It'll come back tenfold.
Well, and there's a saying that whatever you focus on grows. So if you really put that mental energy into it, it'll happen. You can't just kind of halfway sort of do things and expect them to perform. I mean, you really have to be focused. And like you said, make an
You get out of it what you put into it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. And people that think they're strapped on time, trust me, I get it. I have 2 other jobs. You know what I mean? I work full time, and I work every other weekend at this other one for probably 20 hours then. I have 2 small children. I get it. But there's, like I said, most of my stuff is done on lunch breaks and in the car. And then once my kids are in bed, take an hour or 2, and you just find a system that works for you. But I understand time and energy is precious. But you can make it work. You just have to be willing to.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for coming on and sharing your business with everybody. And we will see you on Facebook, and I'll be looking for more of your amazing sales.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Okay. Bye.
Okay, that was a fun interview, and I learned a lot from Lesley, even though she's a new seller. So everybody brings something to the table. Today's trivia question is, how many sellers are active on eBay, and what percent ship internationally? Here are your 5 seconds to think about it. Most people aren't going to know this information off the top of their head, but if you're a numbers geek like I am and you actually read the eBay quarterly reports, this information is there for you. So these answers came directly from the eBay first quarter 2022 report. There are 182 million active users. Of those, 19 million are sellers. So about 10% of all eBay users also sell items. Now, there's a lot of different kinds of sellers lumped into that number, so it could be anybody who sold one thing or people who do it full time and sell hundreds or even thousands of items a month. So here's the interesting part. 31% of sellers are based in the USA, which adds up to 56 million sellers. 57% of total revenue comes from international sales. So tens of millions of buyers are outside of the USA. And I think you know where I'm going with this. The sad statistic, and this is in the quarterly report, only 9% of sellers are cross-border sellers, meaning they ship internationally. And that accounts for all sellers in all countries. So if we break that down to what's happening in the United States, 91% of sellers do not ship internationally, which is a huge opportunity for those who do. $56 million sellers in the United States, and only 5 million of them will ship outside of the USA. So if you're not shipping internationally, These numbers prove that you are missing huge opportunities to sell more items. I have all kinds of videos and information about learning to ship internationally. There's really nothing to it. The label print's the same. These are just people in other countries who want to buy stuff, and we have a lot of stuff here in the United States that is not available in other countries, is too expensive in other countries, or other reasons. So if you're not shipping internationally, I'm going to continue to preach that you do. And if you want some help with that, come to the Premium Library. I have a free trial going on. The information is below the podcast. Just enroll in that free trial and take the lessons about international shipping, and you can even ask me questions if you're confused. So that's my story. I'm sticking to it. Everybody should ship international. There's no reason not to. Okay, and I'm going to end this podcast on that note. Thanks everyone for tuning in and listening every week. I really appreciate you. Look below the podcast for links to all my stuff, and I will be back again next week with another fun and interesting guest. Have a profitable and productive day on eBay. Bye.